Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Sailing. Admiral the Black Dragon, Concubine from Momousagi. Chapter 81. At this time, Eric looked at Deja and said with a smile, I have good news for you. Dea said respectfully, please tell me. After I leave, this position will be yours. Eric smiled. What? Dea exclaimed, his face full of shock. Bellmeyer asked quickly. Husband, has the higher-ups agreed? Eric nodded. Dea was very excited, but said anxiously, Master Eric, I'm afraid I didn't do very well, can I really do it? Eric patted him on the shoulder, smiled lightly and said, I said you can do it, so you can do it. Heard the words. With firm eyes, Dea said solemnly, Don't worry, I will do my best and I won't let you down. He knew very well that he was not qualified to sit in the position of colonel. All of this is thanks to Eric. Inside the villa. As soon as Belle entered the door, he danced and said excitedly, Everyone, come quickly, I have good news to tell. Why? Nami ran over, looked at the two of them, eyes rolled around, and said in surprise, Belle aunt, are you pregnant? Nuo Chigao said suspiciously, the belly hasn't gotten bigger either. Belle gave the two of them a blank look, you two guys, what nonsense are you talking about? No, that's a pity. Nami shook his head with a disappointed look on his face, looking like an adult. It's a pity you're so big. Bellmeyer snorted. At this time, wearing an apron, Makino walked over and said with a smile, What good news, I heard it all the way. Belle waved his hands, very unladylike, laughed and said, Wow, listen up, you have been promoted to Vice Admiral. What? Makino was taken aback, her beautiful eyes widened. Eric's big brother has become Vice Admiral, okay. Nami clapped his little hands and said with a smile. Wow, big brother has become Vice Admiral. Nuo Chigao exclaimed. Bellmeyer said with a smile, Seeing you are so surprised, I am very happy, giggling. Makino looked at Eric, and said softly, Honey, congratulations on your promotion to Vice Admiral, from now on I will be Mrs. Vice Admiral. Me too, Belmel said hastily. Eric smiled slightly, Drink some wine tonight and celebrate. Nami said with a smile, That must be dripped. Belle glared at her, and said angrily, Little boy, what kind of wine do you want to drink? At the same time, the news of Eric's promotion to Vice Admiral has already been passed on. Countless people started discussing one after another. Vice Admiral, how is this possible? Zuzuzu, 23-year-old Vice Admiral, do you want to hang around like this? Master Eric, you are so powerful, I kneel down. Too strong, really too strong. Vice Admiral, my soul. As expected of the person I admire the most, awesome. Master Eric, I want to marry you, let me give birth to monkeys for you. West Rob Village. Inside the luxury villa, Eric was promoted to Vice Admiral. Meister was shocked, as if he had seen a ghost. Kaya jumped up and down and said happily, That's great, Eric big brother is amazing. Lulia was extremely surprised, and murmured, It's been a few years since I was promoted to Rear Admiral, and now I've become Vice Admiral. Meister shook his head and said with emotion, It's amazing, it's really amazing. Windmill Village. Sabo's eyes widened, he couldn't believe it and said, Eric has become Vice Admiral, this. It is worth mentioning that, because of Eric's management, East Blue has undergone major changes, and Sabo did not encounter that shipwreck. Eric, it's this guy again. Ace frowned, sighed and said, Although I hate him, this man is really amazing. He became Vice Admiral at the age of 23. Luffy nodded, and said seriously, Anyway, we must not be pirates here, or we will be caught. Sabo waved his hand, Don't worry, he will go to the headquarters in a few days, we can be pirates with peace of mind. Really? Luffy said with wide-eyed surprise. Sabo laughed, Of course it's true. Ace waved his little hand, very excited, Great, that guy is finally leaving, now is our chance, we don't have to worry anymore. Branch 16. Training Course. Kuina was full of admiration, and murmured, Eric Vice Admiral, that's amazing, he is indeed the person I admire the most. Zoro nodded and said, It's really scary, he is the only man I recognize. Koshiro exclaimed, Vice Admiral, this is a high-level figure in Marine. No matter how many people struggle their whole lives, they can't reach the height. It's amazing. North Blue. 166 branches. Colonel's office. Andre is correcting the document. Suddenly, the phone bug rang. Blue blue blue. Andre answered the phone. Colonel Andre. Dea said respectfully. Andre smiled slightly. Dea, why do you call me when you have time? Dea said excitedly. Colonel Andre, Master Eric has been promoted to Vice Admiral. What? Andre stood up in shock and said in disbelief. What are you talking about? Eric has become Vice Admiral. Dea smiled. Marshal Sengoku personally called and promoted him to Vice Admiral, and he will report to the headquarters in a few days. Andre was too shocked to speak. After a while, he said with emotion, Eric is really amazing. When I was a colonel, he was a soldier. Now that I'm a colonel, he's a Vice Admiral. The talent of the heavens is really a genius that is rare in 100 years. Heard the words. Dea nodded, and said frantically, Master Eric is my lifelong idol, and I will swear to follow him to the death. Andre sighed. Dea, it's really a blessing that you can be by Eric's side. Dea, he is my nobleman, without Sir Eric, I am nothing in this life. After a pause, he said hastily, by the way, Colonel Andre, I have something to tell you. Andre snorted, and asked curiously, what's the matter? Dea said with a smile on his face, with the help of Mr. Eric, I will be promoted to be the colonel of the 16th branch. What did you say? Andre was taken aback, his eyes widened. Dea sighed and said, originally, the headquarters had already selected a candidate, but after Mr. Eric's strong recommendation, I was able to sit in this position. It is all thanks to Mr. Eric. Quiet. Andre was stunned and couldn't react for a while. It took a while. Andre said in admiration. It's amazing, Eric is really amazing, he can actually change the decision of the headquarters. It can be seen from this, how much attention is paid to him by the headquarters, it's terrible. Immediately afterwards, he gave a wry smile. Once upon a time, you were just my assistant, but now even you have reached this stage, and I am still standing still, nothing has changed, what a shame. Dea quickly said. Colonel Andre, don't say that, you know my ability, I can't sit in that position at all, I still don't have enough experience. Andre cheered up and said with a hearty smile, with Eric covering you, Dea, what are you afraid of, just do things seriously. I'm getting old, and the rest will be your young people's world, young people are awesome. South Blue, Branch 88, inside the office, Guillaume was looking down at the report, which was the financial summary of last month, and she needed to review it herself. At this time, the phone bug rang. Blue blue blue. Guillaume answered the phone without hesitation. Are you busy, Guillaume? Staff Officer Crane's voice was calm and powerful. Guillaume smiled slightly and said, Sister He, I'm reading the report. Staff Officer He said indifferently, I have to disturb you for a few minutes to tell you something. Oh, Sister He, tell me, what's the matter? Guillaume asked suspiciously. Staff Crane. Eric has been promoted to Vice Admiral. What? Guillaume stood up in shock and said in disbelief, he's only 23 years old, how is this possible? Staff Officer He calmly said, Eric is a genius, he should not be restricted by age, this matter has been agreed. Guillaume's eyes widened, and he was too shocked to speak. After a while, it's amazing, Eric is so terrifying, it seems that I really can't compare to him. Guillaume shook his head, said with a wry smile, I'm just a rear admiral now, I'm afraid it will take a few years before I get promoted, and I've already been used by him later. It seems that the loser of this bet is destined to be me, alas. Heard the words. Staff Officer Crane said solemnly, Guillaume, a genius like Eric is rare in 100 years. You don't need to compare with him. After all, the gap between you is indeed very big. Guillaume was dejected, and said in a low voice, Sister He, I know all of this. 5 years ago, when he was promoted to Rear Admiral, I already knew that I am indeed inferior to him, and I feel ashamed. Staff Officer He smiled lightly and said, if you can understand this truth, that is undoubtedly the best. Guillaume, your qualifications are very good. I don't know if you can become an admiral in the future, but you definitely have the ability to be an admiral candidate. Sister He, don't worry, I'm Guillaume, I will definitely become the strongest female marine. Guillaume cheered up and said seriously, I am not as good as Eric, but I don't pay attention to others at all. I will continue to work hard and move forward bravely. Staff Officer He smiled, very well, your mentality is very good. You're busy too, I'll hang up first. After finishing speaking, he hung up the phone directly. Guillaume put the phone bug on the desk, not in the mood to read the report, and walked to the window. The sky is as blue as ever, and the white cloud flutters with the wind, looking vast and magnificent. Eric, you are like a cloud in the sky, destined to be the most shining existence in this era. If you really become Admiral, then marrying you is not a bad thing, I am convinced. Guillaume holds the hilt of Kimpira's sword in his left hand, tall and slender, with flowing hair. At this moment, the elegant demeanor of Rear Admiral can be seen at a glance, and it looks heroic and heroic. North Blue. 123 branches. At this moment, Crove was making tea in the office by himself. Suddenly, the phone bug rang. Blue blue blue. Croft quickly connected the phone. Father, are you busy? Hina's tone was very excited, and she said something. Croft snorted, and asked curiously, I'm drinking tea, girl, you seem very happy, what's the matter? Hina quickly said, Father, Eric has been promoted to Vice Admiral. What? One of the teacups in Crove's hand was not held, and fell directly to the ground. With a bang, it fell to pieces. However, Crove didn't notice this at all, and said in shock, Girl, what are you talking about? Eric has become Vice Admiral. Hina smiled and said hurriedly, Yes, the headquarters is discussing this matter now, and Eric will report to the headquarters in a few days. OMG. Croft let out a surprised face, well, he's only 23 years old. Hina was very proud, and said triumphantly, Father, Eric is not an ordinary person, he is Hina's man, the best one. Heard the words. Croft was so shocked that he couldn't speak for a moment and fell into silence. After a while, amazing, amazing. Clover shook his head, and said with a lot of emotion, Eric is really terrifying, he is simply a monster. Immediately afterwards, he laughed loudly, but the more powerful he is, the better, he is my son-in-law, ha ha ha. At this time, news of Eric becoming Vice Admiral has spread throughout North Blue. Countless small towns are discussing Eric. Of course, the place where the discussion is the most intense is naturally not Eric's hometown. The small town of Koenig. Extraordinary, Eric was promoted to Vice Admiral. What did you say? Really, Eric has become Vice Admiral, and now the branch is promoting everywhere. Vice Admiral, I'm sorry. If I remember correctly, Eric is only 23 years old, I'm sorry. The small town of Koenig, to walk out of the Vice Admiral, even if I die, I will rest in peace, woo woo woo. It's really smoke from the ancestral graves. Master Eric, you are the pride of everyone in Koenig, great job. It's a pity that Eric didn't come back. Does he look down on our small place? Fart your mother. That's right, Eric is so busy, how can you come back when you have time? If you say that again, be careful that Lousy will beat you to death. Whoever dares to speak ill of Eric, Lousy will kill him immediately. Master Eric, I like you so much, I have dreamed about you in my dreams, how embarrassing. Hi Lee. At night, there are bandits all around. Branch 16, in the villa. Eric just got out of the shower. Blue blue blue. The phone bug just rang fire. Eric picked up the phone. Honey, what are you doing? Hina smiled happily and her tone was full of deep love. Eric smiled slightly. I just finished washing. By the way, I have something to tell you. I have been promoted to Vice Admiral. You should have heard about it. Hina snorted, and said angrily. Hina knew about it a long time ago, you just called me now, don't you even take Hina to heart. Eric lit a cigarette and said with a faint smile, you also know that after being promoted to Vice Admiral, a lot of work has to be handed over. I am so busy that I am dizzy, how can I worry about these, you say so. HMPH, you're right. Hina whispered in a low voice. Honey, Hina misses you so much, and Hina wants to treat you well. Heard the words. Eric took a breath of his cigarette, his eyes flashed, go and wash up, I'll be right there. Hina said in surprise, really? Eric smiled slightly. Go, I'll definitely be there after you wash up. After finishing speaking, he hung up the phone. Hina muttered to herself. My husband is coming soon, I must show my best side to him. The other side. Eric came to the room and said with a faint smile, I'll go to the headquarters and be back before 11 o'clock. Belle Mel was brushing her hair, and asked suspiciously, Honey, are you going to find Hina? Eric. I was promoted to Vice Admiral today, and I should reunite with her. That's true, Belmel said with a smile. Husband, then you have to come back early, and I will reward you for being hungry. Makino shyly said. Husband, I will wait for you to come back. Ha ha ha, Eric laughed loudly. Don't worry, this is the highlight, I will definitely be back before 11 o'clock. As soon as the voice fell, there was a whoosh, and then disappeared in place. Belmel said seriously. Sister, we have to work harder tonight. After all, my husband was promoted to Vice Admiral today, so we must reward him with all our strength. Makino nodded heavily, blushing. Sister, don't worry, I will do my best. Belle smiled and said, Sister, you have been with your husband for so many years, and you are still so shy, this is not okay, ha ha ha. Naval Headquarters. Inside the female soldiers' dormitory. Hina has just finished washing and is brushing her hair. Suddenly, there was a turmoil in the space, and Eric appeared. Husband. Hina rushed over quickly, her face full of surprise. Eric smiled and said, so happy. Okay. Hina's beautiful eyes sparkled, and she smiled and said, happy, my husband came to see me, Hina is the happiest. Eric said with a smirk. Next, do you want to reward me well? What are you talking about? Giggling. Hina let out a crisp laugh, acting like a child. I don't know how long it has been. Eric smiled lightly. Hina, I will come here in a few days, and then we won't have to separate. Hina leaned on Eric's shoulder Aji and murmured, Husband, Hina never wants to be separated from you again. Hina has endured so hard these years, do you know? Eric stroked her hair, and said gently, I know all of this, and your hard-working husband has seen it all, and everything has come to fruition. Okay. Hina nodded slightly, her face full of happiness. 11 o'clock at night. Villa. Inside the room. At this time, the lights have not gone out. Eric appeared quietly. Husband, you are back. Belmel's tone was full of joy. Eric laughed and said, You too, are you ready to reward me? I'm looking forward to it. Belle snorted and said, My husband, don't worry, I will never admit defeat today, I will definitely defeat you. Very well, I admire your courage, then let me see your strength, ha ha ha. Eric laughed. A new day. 8 in the morning. At this time, Eric and the others had finished their breakfast. Makino gently helped Eric tidy up his clothes, and murmured, I don't know what's going on, but my husband seems to have become more handsome. Nami leaned over, smiled and said, Alec big brother has always been so handsome, okay. That's right, Nuo Chigao hurriedly said. Bellmeyer said with a smile, Okay, let's talk about it when you have something to say. My husband is going to hand over work today, and there are a lot of things to deal with. Then, Makino sent Eric to the door and watched him leave quietly, like a good wife and mother. On the way, when the people saw Eric, they all exclaimed and greeted enthusiastically. Master Eric, congratulations on your promotion to Vice Admiral. Eric Vice Admiral. Master Vice Admiral, good morning. I was so excited that I couldn't sleep last night, I was so happy for Mrs. Eric. I can't sleep, your words are too false. Eric Vice Admiral, I don't want you to leave. East Blue needs you, Master Eric, woo woo woo. Don't cry, Master Eric has been promoted, we should be happy. Yeah, don't cry, laugh for lousy. Among the shouts of the crowd. Eric and Belmel, stepping into branch 16. At this time, Kuina came over and said respectfully, Master Eric, congratulations on your promotion, you are amazing. Zoro was full of admiration, 23-year-old Vice Admiral, I can't believe it until now. Koshiro sighed. Eric, it seems that in my lifetime, I can see you sitting in Admiral's seat. Hearing everyone's compliments, Eric smiled slightly, you guys also prepare for the past few days, and then go to the headquarters with me. Yes, Eric Vice Admiral. Kuina and the others responded quickly. 2 days later, 5-page M. Inside the office. At this time, there are 3 people here. Eric smiled and said, Dea, the work has been handed over, I have finished what I have to say, and the rest is up to you. Dea's attitude is respectful, Master Eric, don't worry, I will never disappoint your expectations of me. Eric patted him on the shoulder and said with a faint smile, Tomorrow morning, I will go to the headquarters, as long as you know, don't say it, so as not to cause too much commotion. But, Dea frowned and said hesitantly, Master Eric, the people are very enthusiastic. They definitely want to see you off and thank you in person. Eric raised his hand to stop. Stop. I'd better go quietly, there is no need to make such a big noise. I will come quietly, I will go quietly, I will not take a single cloud with me with a wave of my sleeves. Amidst the loud laughter, Eric walked towards the door. Belmel hurriedly followed. Dea stood quietly, watching Eric leave. 8 p.m. Villa, living room. Makino looked around and said with emotion, I've lived here for more than 5 years, and I'm going to leave suddenly, I really don't want to part with it. Nami said casually, Sister Makino, you are sentimental, but we are going to live in the headquarters, that is the best place. Nuo Chigao echoed, I'm so excited to think of going to naval headquarters, he. People are not grass, who can be ruthless? Belmo looked at the decoration of the villa and murmured, after all, we have spent 5 years here, there is joy and laughter here. Eric smiled slightly, if you are really reluctant, you don't need to sell this villa, and you can come back to see it later. Heard the words. Bell rolled his eyes at him, and said angrily, you are rising every step of the way now, how could you come to such a small place? Makino is dignified and generous, and said with a slight smile, my husband is going to be Admiral's man, so he will naturally stay at the headquarters in the future. There is really no need to keep this villa. 7 in the morning. Inside the villa, Makino pulled the suitcase and said softly, husband, we are all packed and ready to go. Eric nodded and smiled slightly, in that case, let's go. After finishing speaking, he stepped towards the gate walked. Let's go, head to naval headquarters, he. Nami was carrying a small school bag, jumping up and down, very happy. Soon, a group of people came to the street. At this time, a large group of people appeared in front of them, densely packed, standing all over the street. Husband, Belle Meyer screamed, her beautiful eyes widened. Makino covered his mouth and said in disbelief, why are there so many people here? At this time, Dea walked over, gave a military salute, and said respectfully, Master Eric, the people know that you are leaving, so they got up early on purpose to see you off. Immediately, the people around shouted one after another, begging and crying, filling the whole town. Master Eric, please don't leave. I can't bear to part with you, Sir Eric, woo. If you leave, what will East Blue do? Master Eric, I have set up a longevity card for you at home, wishing you a smooth career and a long journey. I really miss you, Eric Waste. Master Qingtian. The pride of the people, the hero of the people. Please don't go, please, I beg you. No, why did you leave? I don't want you to leave. I know you are Gao Shang, you should leave this small place too, but why do I cry? My eyes are always full of tears. This scene is extremely moving. 10-mile-long street free Vice Admiral. Makino was so moved, his tears seemed to break a bank, he choked up and said, husband, my husband is really amazing. Belle Meyer's eyes were rosy, and he sniffed, being an official, I really have no regrets to be able to reach my husband's level. Eric big brother is amazing. Nami and Nuaochi Gao exclaimed. At this time, Eric waved his hands, and said with a smile, why do you all do this? There is a very good saying, a man's farewell is without tears. Some of you probably haven't had breakfast yet, go back, go back. Moment. The people were excited again and shouted one after another. Master Eric, please take me with you, the sea is the place where men should go. Let me follow you, please Eric Vice Admiral. Yes, you are right, there are no tears in a man's farewell, I can't cry, absolutely can't cry, woo. Don't cry, give Lousy a laugh, did you hear me? Master Eric is promoted, why are you crying, please don't cry, please, it made Lousy cry, what a idiot. Why do we have to say goodbye? Why, I'm so sad. The saddest thing in life is to say goodbye. Quote, Eric Vice Admiral. To see such a shocking scene, Kuina couldn't calm down, and said with great emotion, Master Eric, you are really amazing. Zoro was full of admiration, I didn't even dare to imagine such a scene, but it actually happened, it's amazing. Koshiro sighed and said, a person can do this step, look up to the sky, bow down to the ground, life is up to this point, without any regrets. Eric didn't continue to persuade, and said calmly, it's getting late, let's go. After finishing speaking, he stepped forward and walked forward. Belle, Mel, and the others wiped away their tears and hurriedly followed. The people didn't stop them, and they didn't disperse, they all followed behind and walked to the coast together. The crowd was mighty, like a long dragon. At this time, there was a breath of parting in the air, which made people quite sad. I don't know how long it has been. The group finally reached the shore. Dea stood at the front, followed by all the marine soldiers. Suddenly, Dea took the lead, and all the soldiers followed, bowing deeply towards Eric. Eric Vice Admiral, I wish you a smooth journey and a bright future. The shouts shook the sky and made people awe-inspiring. Eric shook his head and said helplessly, you guys, why do you have to do this? Without further hesitation, he boarded the warship first. The crowd followed closely behind and came to the deck one by one. At this time, the people couldn't bear it anymore, and cried out one by one. Don't go, please, woo woo woo. It's over, Master Qingtian is gone and we are all over. Master Eric, I will miss you, and I hope you will come back often when you are free. East Blue always welcomes you, Lord Eric. You are the pride of East Blue. Master Eric, I will pray every day to bless you in good health, Chongren. Come back often when you have time, everyone here is looking forward to your return. Master Eric. Eric waved his hand and said with a slight smile, go back, everyone, I will come back when I am free. At this time, the warship started slowly and headed towards the sea. Bell waved to everyone, tears filled his eyes, and said excitedly, goodbye everyone, let's all go back. Makino, Nami and others waved goodbye and burst into tears. Sudden, Dea took the lead, facing the direction of the sea, and said loudly, I wish Sir Eric, you will be promoted to Admiral as soon as possible. I wish Sir Eric, you will be promoted to Admiral as soon as possible. The soldiers shouted one after another, and the sound waves caused waves on the sea level. The common people followed suit and shouted loudly, Master Eric, I wish you an early promotion to Admiral. Amid the cheers of everyone, the warship continued to move towards the deep sea, and soon disappeared without a trace. On the warship, Eric's face was calm, and he lit a cigarette and smoked silently. As for the others, they were all in a state of mind, still in shock. Kuina looked at Eric and said in admiration, Kuina will never forget that scene just now. Me too, I will never forget it in my life. Nuochi hurriedly said. Makino wiped away his tears and said embarrassingly, the scene was so touching, I can't restrain the emotion in my heart until now, I made everyone laugh. Belle sighed, sister, I am too. I have never encountered such a moving thing, and this is the first time. At this time, Nami made a grimace and said with a smile, I'm not crying anymore, you are still crying, just like a child. You fool. Belle gave her a blank look, very speechless. 2 days later, on the warship, 967. Kuina, your talent is very good, and you have mastered armament hockey initially. Eric said with a smile. Kuina said respectfully, it's all thanks to you, otherwise I wouldn't be able to master it so quickly. Zoro sighed, but it was the deepest one. Quote, Koshiro said gently, Zoro, you are very talented in swordsmanship, and sooner or later you can master hockey, and your strength will surely increase exponentially. At this time, a soldier ran over and said humbly, Eric Vice Admiral, there is a pirate ship ahead, approaching us. Heard the words, everyone looked forward. In the far distance, there is a ship with a pirate flag, which is constantly coming here. Kuina said angrily. Seeing the warship, they didn't avoid it, but approached us instead, these guys are too courageous. Koshiro said flatly, obviously, this group regards us as targets. Nami waved his little hand and said angrily, with Eric Big Brother here, these guys are here to die. That's right, they're definitely doomed now. Nuo Chigao agreed. Not for a while. The two ships approached. The pirate ship on the opposite side let out a loud laugh. Brothers, have you seen, there are so many beauties, now Laozi is blessed, ha ha ha. This is a middle-aged man in his 40s. His face is full of hostility and his eyes are very cold. Captain Onika, when you eat meat, can you leave us some soup too? Yes, that woman with short dark green hair looks so beautiful, Laozi wants to play with her. Your eyesight is not good. That red-haired woman has a pretty good figure, so. I don't pick, anyone will do. Hey, those 3 little girls are the most exciting ones, quack quack. Immediately, Belle pointed at the opposite side and said angrily, "You pirates, we are Marine, what do you want to do?" "Marine. Lousy plays Marine, ha ha ha." Onika looked up to the sky and laughed loudly, her arrogance reached the extreme. Belle Mel was so angry that he was about to speak, but was interrupted by the opposite party. Onika's eyes were cold, and he said sullenly, "Let me tell you, Lousy is a clone fruit-capable person. I don't know how many Marines he killed. You will be the next batch soon, he he he." The younger ones followed suit and cheered. "There are dozens if not hundreds of Marines who died at our hands. Captain Onika is really strong. The clone fruit is definitely the strongest devil fruit. Captain Onika is the strongest, kill kill kill. Yes, kill these Marines. Leave the women, kill all the men, quack quack." At this time, Eric's eyes flickered, and he said secretly, "It turned out to be the clone fruit of Paramesha, it seems that my plan can start." Before, he had been looking for this devil fruit, but there was no news. Now, the opportunity has finally come. Eric said calmly, "Leave that guy to me to deal with, and you can figure out what to do with the others." After finishing speaking, with a bang, the person disappeared in place. "What?" Onika was taken aback, her face full of horror. "What about people, where did they go?" Onika looked left and right, and hurriedly searched for it. "It's here." Eric appeared on his right and punched him in the head. OPG. Onika had no time to dodge, screamed, fell directly on the deck, and passed out. Shock. The little ones were all shocked. Discussion. "Oh my god, the captain was knocked out. Too strong, how could this guy be so aggressive? What happened just now, why did he disappear suddenly, who can tell me what happened? It's over, the captain is defeated, let's run away quickly." Asterisk 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 asterisk. This guy is definitely not Common's Rear Admiral, it's horrible. Forgive me, my lord, please spare us. Not for a while. All the little minions were all knocked out by Kuina and others. Eric said calmly, "Tie up everyone, wait until the next branch, and hand over these people." After finishing speaking, he carried Onika's body and walked to his room. Nami looked at these little guys and said with a sneer, "Dare to appear in front of Eric's big brother, you are really tired of your life." Nuo Chigao nodded, and agreed, these people killed so many Marines, everyone deserves to die. At this time, Koshiro sighed, Eric's strength is really too strong, the ability to travel through space. Kuina said in admiration, "This is Master Eric, he is the strongest existence in this world." Zoro's face was solemn. "Very strong, really strong." Belle looked at Makino and said with a smile, "Sister, let's go see what husband is doing." Makino thought for a while, if we go over, will it disturb him? "It's okay, let's go." After Belle finished speaking, he walked towards the room. Makino let out an "oh," and then followed. Inside the room, Eric left Onika still on the floor and was about to strip the devil fruit. At this time, with a creak, the wooden door was slowly pushed open. Belmel and Makino walked in with graceful steps. "Husband, are you going to start?" Belmel asked curiously. Eric nodded and said with a smile, "It's about to start." As soon as the voice fell, the left hand turned into a hand of darkness and placed on Onika. In an instant, darkness spread all over his body, and at the same time he let out a deep roar, like a demon whispering. "Although it's not the first time I've seen it, it's really incredible," Belmel said with a look of surprise. Makino echoed, "Yes, depriving devil fruit of this ability is really terrifying." At this time, the apple on Eric's right hand gradually turned into blue, and a strange spiral pattern appeared. "It's done." Eric took his left hand away, looked down at the blue fruit, and his eyes flickered continuously. "See?" Bellmeyer asked suspiciously. "Husband, what's the matter? I find you seem a little strange." Eric smiled slightly. "This devil fruit is very unique, and it is related to my future plans. I'll leave for a while, you guys keep going, I'll go back as soon as I go." The voice fell. With a whoosh, the person has already traveled through the space and left. Belmel and Makino looked at each other. "Husband, what's the matter, so mysterious?" Makino was very surprised. Bell touched his delicate chin and murmured, "Of course my husband trusts us very much, but he still didn't say anything. It's obvious that this matter is very important." He is afraid that we will slip up, so he doesn't plan to tell us. Makino smiled. Husband has his own decision, he didn't say it, and we didn't ask. Bellmeyer said with a smile. It's better to call a soldier and carry this guy. 3 minutes later. South Blue. A deserted island. Suddenly, there was a wave of space fluctuations, and Eric appeared. Then, he closed his eyes. Swish swish swish. Observation hockey is released, and checks to see if anyone is around. After confirming that there was no abnormality, he began to eat. Vomit. Male goby. It's still so unpalatable, it's grass. Eric had an ugly face and started cursing. After a while. Change for me. Eric snorted. Bang. Suddenly, a cloud of white smoke appeared in front of him. After the smoke dissipated, a man in his 30s appeared. I saw this man, with white hair all over his head, very tall, about 2 meters in length, and very handsome in appearance. From today onwards, your name is Chris. Eric put his arms around his body and said something in a deep voice. Chris said calmly, it's a very good ability. I can use all the devil fruit, but I can only use half of it. Eric smiled slightly. Not only that, you can also use Conqueror's Hockey, which is the most important thing. Chris nodded. Eric said lightly, when you go to Sky Island and deprive the Thunder Fruit, you will be a Thunder Fruit capable person in the future. As for other devil fruits, you must not use them. Use. Don't worry, anyone who has seen me use other devil fruits will not be left alive. Chris said with a solemn expression. Eric nodded. The next goal is to start recruiting your subordinates and form the Chris Pirates. When you develop the pirate group into a 4 Emperors level existence, then we can unite and overthrow Im's rule. You have to take care of the road ahead, we try not to meet again, let's go. After Eric finished speaking, he left the backspace. Chris's eyes flashed. Without hesitation, he broke through the space and left. 4:30 in the afternoon. Sky Island, Jade. This is Enel's hometown. At this time, in the forest on the outskirts. Sure enough, Thunder Fruit is the most powerful, yahahaha. With his upper body bare, Eric waved the metal rod, and sent out a bolt of lightning, which hit the big tree in front of him. Rumbling. Suddenly, the big tree was struck by lightning, made a crackling sound, and fell to the ground with a bang. Too strong. This god is really too strong. Enel looked up to the sky and laughed loudly, and said excitedly, we will destroy this place next year, and then go to another Sky Island to drive that old guy Ganfer down. This god will completely rule all Sky Islands, yeah ha ha ha. Sudden. Space fluctuates. Chris appeared behind him, and hit Enel hard on the head. What? Enel was taken aback and tried to dodge quickly. However, it was already too late. A fist covered in armed colors hit him hard on the head. Ah! Enel screamed. The person flew forward, fell to the ground, and passed out. Chris closes his eyes. Swish swish swish. Observation hockey spread out, confirming that no one was around. After that, he came to Enel's side and squatted down. Darkness put his left hand on Enel's body, and Enel's whole body was covered in darkness immediately, and there was the roar of thunder and lightning. As expected of the strongest Logia devil fruit, the devil's resistance is really powerful. Chris's eyes froze, and he said with a grin, no matter how strong you are, you should die for lousy. Dark fruit, go all out. Zzz. On Enel's body, thunder and lightning roared continuously, trying to resist the traction of dark fruit. However, all this is doomed to be in vain. The color of the pineapple on Chris's right hand is constantly changing, gradually turning blue and white. Finally, the stripping was successful. Chris looked at the thunder fruit in his hand, and laughed arrogantly. Very well, thunder fruit, the strongest devil fruit, belongs to Lousy from today, ho ho ho. Without any hesitation, I started eating 367 directly. Vomit. Male Gobi, how many times have I felt this way, Sao Nima? Chris looked ugly and began to curse. Immediately afterwards, he slowly closed his eyes, and said comfortably, very good, this is thunder fruit, the gushing power, the ability of lightning, is indeed the strongest ha ha ha. Glancing at Enel on the ground, Chris sneered. Meeting Lousy, I can only count you as unlucky. Lift your leg and kick. Ah! Enel let out a shrill scream, and flew towards the big tree, directly hitting his head and breaking it, even the brains went in and out, and he died a miserable death. Lousy as Chris, the cruelest pirate of this era, ha ha ha. With a bang, the shuttle space left, as if it had never appeared before. Grand line. On the warship, the space fluctuated, and Eric appeared in the room. Husband, you are back. Makino's beautiful eyes lit up, and he was extremely gentle. Belle-Mel quickly followed up and said, Husband, how are you doing? Are things settled? Very well, the plans are progressing steadily. Eric smiled and felt relieved for a while. Seeing this, Belle smiled and said, Husband, although I don't know what's going on, but seeing you so happy, I'm also happy for you. Makino, me too, if my husband is happy, I will be happy too. Eric laughed loudly, let's go, let's tiensho. After finishing speaking, he strode outside. 3 days later, warship, deck. Looking at the tall buildings in front of him, Nami exclaimed, wow, that's naval headquarters, so magnificent. Nuo Chigao murmured, it feels so powerful. Belle smiled and said, great, after sailing for so many days, we finally arrived at our destination. Not for a while, the warship finally approached the shore. Seeing Eric, the soldiers hurriedly shouted respectfully, Alec Vice Admiral. Makino was surprised, they even recognized it. Bellmeyer said with a smile, obviously, everyone in this department knows about my husband's promotion to Vice Admiral. You stay here first, after my report is over, let's go buy a house. After Eric finished speaking, he stepped forward. Nami clapped her little hands and said with a smile, buy a house, and you can live in a big villa later. Nuo Chigao pointed to the island not far away and said with a smile, we should buy a house there. Belle nodded and smiled slightly, there must be a lot of villas near the headquarters, let's pick a 2-story building later, too many floors is not good. Okay, 2 floors are enough. Makino said with a smile. On the way, but all the soldiers who saw Eric greeted respectfully. After Eric left, the soldiers became emotional one after another. Zuzuzu, you're really young, you're so awesome. It's not just amazing, it's a 6 explosion. 23-year-old Vice Admiral, I'm so scared to death. Master Eric, sooner or later he will be promoted to Admiral, I believe he has such strength. I heard that the devil fruit he ate was very powerful, the strongest devil fruit. I've also heard about this, Logia dark fruit, is the nemesis of all ability users. Then Akainu Admiral, wouldn't he be restrained by him too? Nonsense, as long as you are capable, all will be restrained. I rub it, is it so hanging? Office building. Soon, Eric came here. The marine girls at the front desk saw love in their eyes when they saw Eric. So hot. Master Eric, he is the most handsome man I have ever seen. Hashtag became Vice Admiral at the age of 23, and he is so handsome, I really want to marry him. Okay, wake up, how can a man like him fall in love with you? It would be great if I could marry Mrs. Eric. Yes, Mrs. Vice Admiral, it's so impressive to go out, it's so majestic. It's a pity, we don't have such a good life, we should honestly find someone to marry. Second floor. As soon as Eric came here, he found several people standing in the corridor in front of him. Akainu, Kizaru, Doberman et al. Eric looked calm and walked over. Ouch, Eric Rear Admiral, no, Eric Vice Admiral, you are finally here. Kizaru put his hands in his trouser pockets, tilted his mouth, and said in a strange way. Akainu was expressionless, and said in a deep voice, Eric, your performance in East Blue is indeed very good. But don't you think it's unreasonable for you to become Vice Admiral at the age of 23? Heard the words, Eric smiled slightly and said, Sakazuki Admiral, I didn't choose Vice Admiral, but this position chose me. Akainu said angrily, arrogance. Doberman said coldly, Eric Vice Admiral, I advise you not to talk so much, but keep a low profile. Ghost Spider took a puff of cigarette, with a gloomy look, Vice Admiral and Vice Admiral also have a big difference in strength, I hope you can understand this, don't be too rampant. Eric snorted, and said with a faint smile, if you are not convinced, welcome to come and discuss with me. After finishing speaking, he stepped forward and walked forward. This guy. Doberman stared at Eric's back, his face full of ferocity. The Ghost Spider was murderous. Since he wants to seek death, then I really have to find him to practice. At this time, Kizaru tilted his head and said casually, that guy Eric is not so easy to deal with, I advise you not to ask for trouble. After all, He threw it in his office. Akainu said solemnly. Eric has already been invincible after eating the fruit of space, but with your strength, there is nothing you can do about him. Doberman sighed, and said helplessly, indeed, if he just dodges blindly, there will be no way to proceed with this battle. The ghost spider was smoking a cigar. This idiot is so lucky that he always comes across such a top-quality devil fruit. Marshall's office. Lupin. Eric stood at the door and knocked. Immediately, the three old men inside looked over. Garp laughed and said, Eric, you kid is finally here. Eric walked in with a smile on his face. Master Marshall, Staff Officer Crane, Vice Admiral Garp, I'm here to report. Sengoku nodded and said with a smile, not bad, the spirit is very good. Staff Officer, he said calmly, Eric, I haven't seen you for more than 5 years, you've grown a lot taller, maybe 2.5 meters. The Chief of Staff's eyes are bright, no more, no less, just this number. Eric responded with a smile. Garp smiled, very good, getting closer to Admiral's height. The meaning in the words is that if you want to become Admiral, you must meet the height requirements, and you must not be too short, of promise. Eric was very clear about this, and nodded in response. At this time, with admiration in his eyes, Sengoku praised, Eric, your performance in East Blue has caught everyone's attention, great job. Garp laughed, and said, I really have to thank you, old man. Now my hometown is booming, and all of this is due to you, little guy. I just did my job. Eric's face was calm and composed. Staff Officer, he smiled and said, not arrogant or impetuous, very good. Sengoku waved his hand and said with a smile, go and get Vice Admiral's military uniform, it doesn't suit you anymore. Yes, the garden top scale. After Eric finished speaking, he walked towards the door. 3rd floor. Eric came to the warehouse and quickly changed into his military uniform. On the epaulettes, there are 2 bright stars, which are the logo of Vice Admiral. Sure enough, this dress is the prettiest. Eric muttered secretly, then walked downstairs. On the way, when the soldiers saw him and looked at the 2 dazzling stars, they were all very moved. Vice Admiral, it's amazing, I'm so impressed. This is the first time I've seen such a young Vice Admiral, awesome class. Such handsome, and still in a high position, if you want to pick up girls, it's easy to catch. Nonsense, if I was also Vice Admiral, it wouldn't be a matter of 1 sentence. I really envy Eric. It would be great if I could replace him, so I don't have to worry about women. Hey, wake up, you. In broad daylight, you are dreaming. Not for a while. Eric came to the port. Then, he jumped and landed on deck. Immediately, everyone came together and looked at Eric. Belle Meyer's beautiful eyes sparkled, and she said with a smile, honey, you look really handsome in this dress. Makino nodded again and again. His eyes were full of love. You are so handsome, husband, you are really amazing. 2 stars, Eric's big brother has finally become a Vice Admiral, so happy. Nami surrounded Eric and kept looking at him. Eric big brother is the most handsome. Nuo Chigao said in admiration. Kuina didn't speak, but looked at Eric with respect and admiration. Eric smiled slightly, let's go, it's time for us to buy a villa. Oh, buy a villa, he. Nami was very excited and laughed like a silver bell. 10 minutes later, the warship approached the shore again. Eric looked at Koshiro, and said lightly, go and choose a bungalow, if you don't have enough money, tell me. It's enough, we don't have such high requirements for the residents. After all, we are all practitioners, and we pay attention to simplicity. Koshiro said in a gentle voice. Eric nodded, didn't say anything more, and walked forward. Belle, Mel and others hurriedly followed. Koshiro looked at Kuina and Zoro, smiled and said, let's go, let's choose a place to stay. 5:30 in the afternoon. Inside the luxury villa. Nami ran around, laughing happily, it's so beautiful here, much better than East Blue. Nuo Chigao said with a smile, yes, East Blue is just a small place, so this is the best place. Belmo looked at the surrounding furnishings and exclaimed, the design style here is indeed very exquisite, and it cannot be compared with East Blue. Makino smiled, the main reason is that the identity of the husband is so easy to use. Seeing the arrival of Vice Admiral, the real estate boss was shocked. Belle Meyer giggled and said, you said that person. When he saw the clothes on her husband, his eyeballs almost popped out. It's really funny. Turning to look at Eric, he said with a smile, husband, the military uniform of Vice Admiral you wear is really super powerful. Eric lit a cigarette and smiled slightly. Look at what else you want to buy, that's the most important thing. Bellmeyer said with a smile. Speaking of shopping, it's really convenient here. Makino echoed, yeah, it's really bustling here. When I came here just now, I took a look at the shops. There are all kinds of things. It's much better than East Blue. Would you like to have a barbecue at night? Nami Ajef ran over, looking weird. Nuauchi jumped up and down, and said cheerfully, I saw a barbecue restaurant just now, the business is good, let's go there to eat. Heard the words. Belmo looked at Eric and smiled slightly, husband, these two little guys want to eat barbecue, or let's eat this tonight. Let's go, just taste the taste here in this department. Eric smiled and walked towards the door. Xing, come here directly, hold I's big hand, and said with a smile, Big brother, I knew it was the best for me, Nami likes you the most. Nuo Chigao also came to Eric and took his other hand, me too, I like big brother too. Belle and Makino looked at each other and smiled heartily. Such a happy scene made them very happy. Then, a group of people walked outside. When pedestrians saw Eric and the others, they all stopped to watch, their faces filled with admiration. That's Lord Eric, he's really handsome. I heard that he is only 23 years old, it's really scary. Yeah, 23-year-old Vice Admiral, this is the first time I've heard of it, awesome. I have lived here for decades, and I have seen Admiral many times, but this is the first time I have seen such an excellent young man like him. I heard from others that Eric's goal is to become Admiral, and the code name has already been thought of, Black Dragon Admiral. What? Eric wants to be Admiral? Nonsense, promoted to Vice Admiral at the age of 23, is it difficult to become Admiral? I think he can definitely do it. Black Dragon Admiral, I wipe, good hockey's code name. Akainu Admiral, Kazaru Admiral, Iokiji Admiral, none of them seem to sound so good, but Black Dragon Admiral sounds the most fluent. That's right, the Black Dragon Admiral, hockey and nice. Bellmeyer said with a smile. Husband, your reputation is really loud, even the people here know your future code name. Makino is gentle and generous, now in Marine, my husband must be the most famous, even more famous than the three admirals. The big brother is the best. Nami and Nuo Chigao said something hastily. Not for a while. A group of people came to a barbecue shop. Absolutely delicious barbecue, that's what it's known for. At this time, the store was full of customers, and the business was booming. Boss, is that person Eric Vice Admiral? An employee ran up to the owner with an anxious look on his face. What? The boss was taken aback, looked at the door quickly, and said in shock, My God, it's really Eric Vice Admiral. After finishing speaking, he hurried to the door. The shop owner is a middle-aged man in his 40s, tall and thin. He ran outside and said respectfully, Eric Vice Admiral, welcome to my shop. Eric smiled slightly, I'm just here for a barbecue, you don't need to make such a big fuss. The owner laughed and said, if other people came over, I would definitely not do this, but you are different, the person I admire most now is you. 23-year-old Vice Admiral, I've never heard of it, it's really amazing. After finishing speaking, he slapped his head, blamed himself and said, sorry, I was too busy talking, Lord Eric, please sit inside, there is a box on the second floor, I will take you there. Eric raised his hand to stop, you are also in business, don't let me affect your business, it will be bad. The shopkeeper said with a smile, no matter where, you can come to my small shop, which is the biggest business. After today, many people must know that you have been to my small shop, so my business will definitely get better and better. After all, even Mr. Eric has come, which shows that the taste of my shop is very good. After speaking, hurry up and lead the way. Bellmeyer's eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, husband, this boss is right, we are advertising for him. Makino exclaimed, what a shrewd boss. Nami exclaimed angrily, profitable businessman. Nuo Chigao snorted and said, that's right, this boss is too good at calculating, I don't like him. Eric smiled slightly, this person is really good at doing business, and he is slick in all aspects. No wonder the business is so hot. At this time, the guests in the store also saw Eric. One by one screamed, "Eric, Vice Admiral!" Eric nodded in response, then walked upstairs. After he left, the guests started discussing one after another. "My God, Lord Eric actually came here to eat barbecue. It's not surprising, I also met Sakazuki Admiral here. Zuzuzu, Eric Vice Admiral, you are as young as in legendary, so awesome. I like Sir Eric so much, it would be great if I could marry him. Ruth, have you been drinking too much? Just like you want to marry Eric in the middle. What's wrong with my old lady, can your grandma speak? It's okay, let's not say a few words, drink. That's right, didn't you see the two women beside Mr. Eric? They're both so beautiful, did Luthu follow them? Okay, don't say a few words, drink and drink. Second floor. The owner smiled respectfully. Eric Vice Admiral, this box is the best place in our store. A distinguished guest like you should sit here. Eric smiled slightly, you're really good at it. The shop owner quickly said, you do it first, and I will go down and grill your country personally. After finishing speaking, he hurried downstairs. Nami stared at his back, snorted coldly and said, this guy is really flattering, he will flatter Big Brother. That's it, Nuo Chigao echoed. Bellmeyer said with a smile, this boss is indeed very interesting, just like my husband said, he is exquisite in all aspects. Makino smiled, a typical representative of doing business. Eric sat in the box, looked around, and said with a smile, it's really nice here, with a good environment, fresh air, and very quiet. It's really good. Others followed suit. Not long. Everyone began to eat. Makino praised. No wonder the business is so good, this barbecue is really delicious. Bellmeyer is very unladylike, it's delicious, the taste is really amazing. Nami snorted. Although I hate this boss, this food is really delicious, I have never eaten such a delicious barbecue. Yeah, this is the first time I have eaten such delicious food. Nuo Shongeo followed up. At this time, Eric picked up the wine glass, said with a slight smile, we have become Vice Admiral, let's go and celebrate. Bell smiled and said, husband, I wish you every step of the way and be promoted to Admiral as soon as possible. Holding the cup, Makino was gentle and generous, I wish you all the best and a bright future. And me, Nami picked up the cup and said quickly, Eric big brother, I'm waiting for you to become Admiral, come on. Bell glared at her, you little guy, don't drink. Nami snorted, the big brother has been promoted to Vice Admiral, what's the matter if I drink a little? Eric laughed, forget it, it's rare to be so happy today, let her drink a little. Heard the words, Bell said helplessly, Nami, you can only drink a little, not too much. I see, it's really long-winded, but Eric's big brother is the best. Nami said with a smile. Then, cheers, everyone touched their glasses, everyone smiled, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. 11 o'clock at night, inside the villa, Bellmeyer asked, husband, we are all here at the headquarters, won't you take Hina to live here? Eric took a puff of cigarette and said lightly, she's gone to sea, let's talk about it when she comes back. Bell grinned and said with a smile, speaking of which, I haven't seen Hina yet, she must be pretty. It goes without saying, Eric responded with a smile. Okay, I moved here for the first time today, shouldn't we celebrate it? After Eric finished speaking, he looked at the two with a smirk on his face. Bell snorted, when I was afraid of you, I drank alcohol today, and my strength must be stronger. Makino said in a low voice, husband, I just came to the headquarters today, so I really want to treat you well. Eric laughed, then what are you waiting for? Let's start playing the game, ha ha ha. A new day, 8 in the morning, everyone had their breakfast. Makino caringly helped Eric tidy up his clothes, gentle and virtuous. Husband, today is your first day at work, you must dress neatly and show your best posture. Eric smiled slightly and said, with you here, where can my clothes be messed up? After finishing speaking, he strode towards the door. At this moment, Eric could no longer see the figure. Standing at the door, Makino asked with a smile, sister, do you really not plan to continue being a Marine? Bell nodded and whispered softly, my husband has already become a Vice Admiral. At this stage, if he wants to be promoted, he can only rely on his own, and I can't help him. Since this is the case, I might as well spend all my time on cultivation. As long as my strength improves, I can still help my husband. Heard the words, Makino sighed and said, Sister, you were right, I want to learn from you, and I have to work hard to become stronger. Nami snorted. Belle Mel Ant doesn't go to work, and he doesn't help with cooking. Belle, Mel, and Ant have to work hard to practice, where there is no time to cook. Nami, you can't say that, you know. Nuo Chigao quickly warned. Belle said, 897, Nami took a look, and said angrily, you should hurry up and draw your chart, day by day is really. I'm ignoring you, Nami said with a smile, and ran into the house. Makino smiled and said, Sister, you should practice hard and leave the cooking to me. Being able to cook for my husband is what I want to do most. Belle Mel, Sister, thank you for your hard work, I'm going to practice. The coast. At this time, a warship stopped here. Depart on time at 8:30, and head to Malindo with Marine. The soldiers on the warship greeted Eric after seeing Eric. Eric Vice Admiral. Eric nodded in response. At this time, Eric saw many familiar faces. Akainu, Kizaru, Doberman and others are all on this warship. Apparently, they live in this place too. Yo-yo, Eric, you're wearing Vice Admiral's clothes. Kizaru tilted his mouth, looking obscene. Eric smiled slightly and said, Kizaru Admiral, good morning. Sudden, the ghost spider walked over, smoking a cigar, and said gloomily, Eric Vice Admiral, do you have time, how about a discussion? Immediately, the people around all turned their gazes over. Eric put his arms around his body and said with a faint smile, we are all Vice Admirals, if you want to compete, I will naturally not refuse, why? Ghost Spider nodded, with a cold expression on his face, in that case, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I will wait for you at the training ground. After speaking, he walked towards Akainu. Kizaru put his hands in his pockets and said strangely, it's really interesting, this must be a very exciting exchange, don't miss it. The flying squirrel said calmly, I will definitely visit this competition. I'm curious about Eric Vice Admiral's strength, and I'll be there this afternoon. Huo Shaoshan took a puff of cigarette and smiled gently. At the same time, the marine soldiers on the side also discussed it one after another. You say, who will win this match? I see, it must be the Ghost Spider Vice Admiral, after all he is a veteran Vice Admiral. I also like the Ghost Spider Vice Admiral, he is no ordinary Vice Admiral. Ghost Spider Vice Admiral is an elite Vice Admiral, extremely powerful. You don't know, Eric Vice Admiral is a space fruit capable person, he can travel through space. Also, Eric Vice Admiral is the nemesis of ability users, and Ghost Spider Vice Admiral is ability users, so it will naturally be restrained. One is Logia Dark Fruit, and the other is Zone Spider Fruit, the difference between the two is too great, which already explains the problem. Hey, anyway, I will definitely go over and have a look at the discussion in the afternoon. +1. Not for a while. The warship then arrived at Marineford. Everyone went to the office building. Second floor. Eric just got here. Staff Officer Crane happened to come over from the corridor, and said lightly, Eric Vice Admiral, come with me, I will take you to the office. Thanks, Chief of Staff. Eric smiled and responded. Then, Staff Officer Crane led Eric to the front. Soon, the two stopped. Staff Officer he pointed to an office and said calmly, this is, and it will be your personal office from now on. After finishing speaking, Staff Officer he left here, looking very busy. Eric stepped into the office and looked around. The space is very spacious, everything is neatly arranged, and it is cleaned very cleanly. It looks like an office. Eric nodded secretly, very satisfied. Starting from today, I have to sit in this position for many years. Eric is very clear that his promotion has reached the limit, and it is currently impossible to continue to improve. After all, his age is there, he is too young, and it is impossible for him to become an admiral. 9:30 in the morning. Inside the conference room. At this time, the generals came in one after another, ready to start the daily morning meeting. Eric stepped in and took a look. As expected of the headquarters meeting room, it's really spacious. Eric muttered secretly. At this time, Garp laughed loudly and said, Eric, here is your seat, seat 7, you are so old. It turns out that the location here is not just for sitting. Sengoku is seat 1 and belongs to the main seat. Garp is number 2, the marine hero, second only to the marshal. Crane staff officer is No. 3, Akainu number 4, Aokiji number 5, Kizaru number 6. And Eric is number 7, which belongs to the frontmost position under Admiral. If you want to sit on number 7, you have to have that strength. The ghost spider said something coldly with a cigar in its mouth. Doberman said with a ferocious expression, "The discussion in the afternoon is over, and the position of number 7 must be changed." For these two mad dogs, Eric didn't bother to pay attention, and walked towards his own position. Next to him is Aokiji, sound asleep. It really is a wonder, Eric thought secretly, and sat in his seat. Not for a while. The generals are all seated. Boom boom boom. Sengoku knocked on the desk and said in a deep voice, "Before the meeting starts, I want to say one thing." Turning his head to look at Eric and the ghost spider, he said seriously, "I heard that you two are going to have a sparring session this afternoon, is there such a thing?" Chapter 91. Master Marshal, there is indeed such a thing, it is my challenge to Eric. Ghost Spider took a puff of cigarette and said with a serious face. Eric nodded, but didn't speak. At this time, Garp laughed loudly. "Eric, I believe in your strength, I will go over there this afternoon to have a look, ha ha ha." Sengoku said in a deep voice, "You two want to compete, I will not object, but enough is enough, don't get too intense." "Yes, Yuantian," Eric and Ghost Spider quickly agreed. "Okay, let's start the meeting now," Sengoku said with a solemn expression. The current situation in New World is still very chaotic, and the fighting is fierce. One of the most prominent is the Red Hair Pirates. Captain Shanks once stayed with the Roger Pirates for a while. This person is extremely powerful, and has defeated many veteran powerhouses. Given that New World is so turbulent, the decision made by the higher authorities must severely deter. Sengoku looked at the generals and said in a deep voice, "Now, everyone can speak freely and share their opinions." Eric's eyes flashed, and he said secretly, "Shanks became the 4 emperors, that is, the term 4 emperors will be proposed next year." In my mind, I couldn't help flashing a picture. Shanks used ecstasy to destroy the kid pirates, showing his invincible strength. At this time, Akainu said very seriously, "All these scum of the sea should die. I will go to New World myself to see which pirate dares to be presumptuous." Kizaru crossed his legs and said strangely, "I don't know what the higher-ups think, let the pirates kill each other in New World, isn't it better, why bother to stop it, it's very tiring, okay." Not long. The meeting is over. After talking about it, it's nothing more than talking about loneliness. Eric said something secretly, and then returned to his office. The New World is too chaotic, and the strong are entrenched in it, which is so intimidating. So this meeting, in fact, is the same as not saying anything. Eric returned to the office and just lit a cigarette. At this time, Garp stood at the door and said with a smile, "Boy, you must go all out this afternoon and beat up that ghost spider, do you hear me?" Eric smiled. "Vice Admiral Garp, come in and sit down." "Sit no matter what, because I'm going to make tea at Sengoku's." Garp laughed and said, "Anyway, my daily job is to make tea in the marshal's office, ha ha ha." Eric smiled slightly. "I really envy you, the little life is really pleasant." Garp tucked his nose and said angrily, "I said you kid, did you hear what the old man told you?" "Don't worry, I'll beat him up." Eric shrugged and said casually, "That's right, the old man has long been unhappy with him, beat him up, ha ha ha." Garp laughed and headed for the marshal's office. Eric smoked silently, and he knew why Garp did it. Ghost spiders belong to the generals of the Hawk faction. And Garp is a dove, he is most optimistic about Aokiji, and he doesn't like Akainu. Marine's faction is still very complicated. Eric ignored these and looked down at the documents. It's 2:50 in the afternoon. Office. Garp stood at the door, laughed and said, "Eric, what are you still doing here, hurry up." Eric put down the file and smiled slightly, "I'm about to go, Vice Admiral Garp, let's go together." After speaking, he walked towards the door. I saw Sengoku, Staff Officer Crane, standing at the door. "Master Marshal, Chief of Staff, do you want to go there too?" Eric asked with a smile. Sengoku looked calm. "Anyway, I have nothing to do, so I just went to wait and see." Garp laughed and said, Sengoku, you old guy, you are too busy, and you said you have nothing to do. If you want to know Eric's strength, just tell me directly. Garp, you fool. Sengoku glared and said angrily. Staff officer, he said lightly. It's getting late, let's go. Then, the four of them walked out of the office building. Training course. At this time, countless people have gathered here. Akainu and Kizaru are already here. Even Aokiji, who has always been lazy, has come here. The soldiers gathered together and discussed it one after another. There are so many great people. Isn't it the Vice Admiral competition? Why are all three admirals here? Why? Because of Eric Vice Admiral. That's right, if other Vice Admirals are competing, it is impossible for them to appear at the same time. Zuzuzu, Eric Vice Admiral is so handsome. 23-year-old Vice Admiral, everyone wants to know how good he is. Anyway, Ghost Spider Vice Admiral will definitely win. Let's bet, Ghost Spider Vice Admiral, 1 for 1. Eric Vice Admiral, 1 for 5. Are you so pessimistic about Eric that you pay 5 for 1? Eric will definitely lose. At this time, there was a commotion in the crowd. Sengoku and others stepped forward. See this scene. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. The marshal is here. No. It's too scary. Sengoku-sama has come forward. This scale is too frightening, I'll wipe it. I have to say, Eric Vice Admiral's face is really too awesome, it's blown away. Yeah, I am. Eric looked calm, and walked to the middle of the training ground. At this time, the ghost spider on the opposite side was waiting for him, with a cruel look on his face. Very well, in front of so many people, I want them to know that you don't deserve to be Vice Admiral at all. Ghost Spider, with a cigar in his mouth, said coldly, 23-year-old Vice Admiral, what a joke. Eric put his arms around his body and said calmly, Vice Admiral, the Ghost Spider, I hope you can still be so stubborn later. At this time, Sengoku waved his hand and said loudly, remember, it's just a common exchange, don't go too far. Okay, let's get started. Field, the Ghost Spider held a cigar in its mouth and said darkly, Eric Vice Admiral, I am a Zone Spider Fruit capable user, and I am good at using swordsmanship. If you can't withstand my attack, remember to surrender as soon as possible. If I accidentally hurt you, it will bring me a lot of trouble, did you hear? Heard the words. Eric smiled slightly, and said lightly, Vice Admiral, the Ghost Spider, let's start, don't be silly. Immediately, the Ghost Spider got angry, and said coldly, okay, very good, I want to see how amazing your dark fruit is. There was a sound of brushing. 8 hands suddenly appeared on the Ghost Spider's body, and each hand held a sword, shining with a sharp cold light. Eric's eyes flashed, and he said with a smile, 8 hands, it really is a spider fruit. Off the field, seeing the Ghost Spider use its ability, everyone was amazed. The spider fruit of Vice Admiral, the Ghost Spider, is really awesome. Yes, under Admiral, the strength of the Ghost Spider Vice Admiral can be ranked at the top. Definitely the most elite Vice Admiral. Spider fruit, combined with 8 swords, 8 sword style. Eric Vice Admiral is also very strong. Space fruit, I think he is stronger. Space fruit vs spider fruit is obviously better than space fruit. Anyway, this battle must be very exciting, everyone cheers. Sengoku put his hands in his trouser pockets, and said seriously, the strength of Ghost Spider Vice Admiral is definitely the top Vice Admiral. Staff Officer Crane nodded, he is indeed very strong, but Eric's space fruit is even more powerful. Garp laughed and said, Eric is neither arrogant nor impetuous, since he dares to agree to the competition, he must be sure of winning. Field, a gust of wind blew by, lifting the corners of their clothes. This seems to be the horn of attack. Moved. The Ghost Spider Vice Admiral was smoking a cigar, and with a whistling sound, he rushed forward. You're doomed, Eric Vice Admiral backquote. The Ghost Spider waved its 8 hands, showing a gesture of encirclement, which was bound to surround Eric. However, before the others came over, Eric disappeared in place with a whoosh. Shuttle space, chase. The Ghost Spider releases observation haki to feel the surrounding situation with all its strength. Not found. Everything is so normal, there is no trace of Eric at all. How can it be? The Ghost Spider was taken aback, his eyes widened. Not only him. The people around were all stunned. Kizaru put his hands in his trouser pockets, tilted his mouth, and said strangely, "Hey, you can't feel Eric's breath, it's really scary." Akainu glanced around coldly, pushed observation Haki with all his strength, and said in amazement, "There is no breath at all, how is this possible?" Aokiji said slowly, shocked, "Space fruit, this is completely integrated into the space." The other side, Sengoku had also sensed it, and said in disbelief, "Observation Haki, there is no way to find Eric's figure, it's incredible. Obviously, Eric has developed the space fruit to an extremely high level." Staff Officer Crane's eyes sparkled with wisdom, and he began to analyze. Garp narrowed his eyes slightly, and said with a smile, "Little Eric, he really is a genius, amazing. As for the soldiers, they have already exploded." I wipe. Eric Vice Admiral disappeared. What's going on? Have you seen Sir Eric? This is the strength of Eric Vice Admiral, so strong, really strong. Look at Vice Admiral's expression, it looks like he saw a ghost. An invisible opponent is the scariest thing. Field. Come out, Eric you idiot, come out for me. The ghost spider looked around and roared angrily. Sudden, there were fluctuations in the top of his head. Eric covered the armed color with his right foot and swept out. What? The ghost spider was taken aback, the 8 swords quickly gathered, and covered armament Haki, wrapping its head. Bang! The ghost spider was sent flying by the shock, and its figure kept retreating, gliding all the way. After stopping, all 8 hands of ghost spider trembled, and said in shock, "How is it possible, why is your armament Haki so strong?" This time when the armed forces collided, he fell into a disadvantage. Suddenly, the audience was in an uproar. Oh my god, the ghost spider Vice Admiral was blown away. This is too crazy. Eric Vice Admiral, that's too strong. The ghost spider Vice Admiral. It's amazing, Mr. Eric is mighty Haki. Vice Admiral, the ghost spider, is not the opponent, it's impossible. Eric Vice Admiral. Kizaru looked like he was going to die, and said with a strange smile, "More than 5 years have passed, Eric's armament Haki, I'm afraid it has reached advanced, what a terrible young man." Akainu frowned, this guy's strength. Aokiji was very surprised, and murmured, "Advanced armament Haki, this joke is too big." The other side, Sengoku couldn't believe it. Eric has the most advanced weapon color, how is this possible? With a serious face, Garp said in a deep voice, "You can't be wrong, just like the old man, the strongest armament Haki." Staff Officer Crane was extremely solemn, "Space travel, hide your figure, and then attack with advanced armed color, this Eric is really very good, Zhao is difficult to deal with." Ghost Spider Vice Admiral, definitely not his match. Eric floated in the air, condescending, and said lightly, "Ghost Spider, also Vice Admiral, the gap between you and me is not so big." "Impossible, you are only 23 years old, how could you be so powerful, stop joking." The ghost spider was furious, and the 8 swords waved, blowing a violent gust of wind. 8 swordsmanship, sky slash. Immediately, the fierce sword energy crisscrossed and swept towards the sky. The sword energy was turbulent, causing fluctuations in the space, and the aura was extremely violent. It can be seen that the power of this blow is absolutely extraordinary. Stubborn. Eric's eyes turned cold. With a bang, the body disappeared again. Boom. The berserk sword energy, like a tornado, continuously climbed into the sky, shaking the air away. The clouds in the sky all dissipated, which shows the power of this blow, which is very terrifying. Sudden. Behind the ghost spider, ripples appeared in the space. Eric's right hand was dark, and he slammed it hard towards the back of the ghost spider. The ghost spider had no time to attack, so it could only defend with all its strength. The 8 swords are covered with armed colors to resist Eric's iron fist. Boom! The ghost spider was hit by a powerful force and flew forward. At the same time, he could no longer hold the hilt of the sword, and all 8 swords flew out. Clinking, falling to the ground with a crisp sound. Immediately, the whole audience was stunned. The weapon of Vice Admiral, the ghost spider, is actually attached to the car on the ground. Defeated, the ghost spider Vice Admiral actually lost. Even the weapon has been turned over, how can I fight this one, I will wipe it. This is too fierce. This is so cruel. The gap is too big, the Ghost Spider Vice Admiral couldn't fight back at all, he just knelt down. All I can say is, Eric Vice Admiral, you're so awesome. With a gloomy face, Akainu said coldly, hide your head and show your tail, this guy. Doberman said angrily. Eric is too shameless, what else can he do other than sneak attack? Kizaru put his hands in his trouser pockets and said briskly, young people nowadays are really scary, why? Aokiji exclaimed, Eric's strength is definitely at the Admiral level. The other side, Sengoku shook his head and said with emotion, I never thought that Eric would be so strong. Garp laughed loudly, this kid's strength, even if he doesn't reach Admiral, is infinitely close. He has a strength comparable to Admiral. Staff Officer Crane said wisely, the fruit of space allows him to launch sneak attacks continuously, and if he misses a hit, he escapes into space. In this way, even if Admiral touches him, it will be a very headache. Field. The Ghost Spider looked at the weapon on the ground and said blankly, I lost. Eric put his arms around his body and said calmly, Ghost Spider Vice Admiral, you are indeed very powerful, an absolute elite Vice Admiral. However, I am the Black Dragon Admiral, the gap between us is much bigger than you can imagine. At this time, Sengoku said loudly, okay, this is the end of the competition, there is no need to continue. After finishing speaking, he walked away from here. Garp looked at Eric, laughed and said, boy, well done, ha ha ha. After all, follow and leave. Eric ignored the Ghost Spider and walked towards the office building. On the way, everyone who saw him cast admiring gazes, full of admiration. So amazing. Is this the strength of Master Eric? It's so good. Black Dragon Admiral. Zuzuzu, it won't be long, I'm afraid there will be another Admiral. Idol, from now on my idol will be Master Eric. 23 years old, I'm sorry. Quote. No need to say, the strongest Vice Admiral Eric. Yeah, after this battle, Eric is definitely the strongest Vice Admiral, I can't run away from this. Amazing class. Soon, the news that Eric is the strongest Vice Admiral spread throughout the headquarters. Even the nearby islands knew the news. 5:30 in the afternoon. Inside the villa, Eric walked in. Nami ran over in a hurry and said with a smile, Eric big brother, you are amazing. Nuo Chigao hurriedly followed. Yes, the strongest Vice Admiral, big brother is the best. Oh, you get it. Eric smiled. Belle smiled and said, husband, this news is spreading everywhere, you are really amazing. At this time, wearing a red apron, Makino walked over and said gently and generously, honey, wash your hands, you can eat. 11 o'clock at night. Villa, inside the room. Eric smiled lightly. I became the strongest Vice Admiral today, you shouldn't reward me. Bell rolled his eyes at him, and said angrily, you think about these things every day. Makino asked curiously, husband, you are so popular, you should be promoted to Admiral soon. It's not that easy. Eric shook his head and sighed, I'm too young, 5 elders won't let me become a minister at all. Belle Meyer blinked her beautiful eyes, said with a smile, honey, you mentioned 5 elders before, but you only mentioned it a little bit. While mentioning them now, please tell us about these 5 people. Makino and I are very curious. Eric smiled and said calmly, 5 elders, the world's highest authority. Curly-haired 5 elders, named Seiden-san, an old man with a cane. Mustache 5 elders. A new day. In the office. Eric was processing the documents with his head down. Sudden. Knock knock knock. Come in. Eric didn't even raise his head, and said something lightly. Then, footsteps came, and there was no movement. Eric was a little puzzled and looked up. Honey, you're back. Eric smiled slightly, very happy. Hina's beautiful eyes sparkled, and she said affectionately, husband, Hina is back, Hina misses you so much. Eric stood up, arms outstretched. Hina flew up and hugged Eric tightly. Husband, during this time, Hina misses you so much, really misses you. Eric stroked her hair, and said softly, how much do you think? Hina murmured, I want it very much, I'm thinking about it even in my dreams. Ha ha ha, Eric laughed, very proud. Marine beauty Hina, this is the goddess in the hearts of countless soldiers. The majestic goddess, but she fell in love with Eric so much, which was enough to break the hearts of the soldiers. 5:40 in the afternoon. Inside the villa, Eric and Hina stepped in. As soon as Nami saw the two of them, she ran over with a smile. This is Sister Hina, she is really beautiful. Hina smiled and said, you are Nami, you are really smart. Nami exclaimed, hey, how do you know my name? Bellmeyer stepped over and said angrily, nonsense, my husband must have told her, so I don't need to ask. After finishing speaking, he looked at Hina and exclaimed, Hina, I often hear your husband mentioning you. This is the first time we met. You are so beautiful. At this time, wearing White's apron, Makino smiled and said, Hina is here, wash your hands and you can eat. Sister Belle, Sister Makino, Hina is very happy to meet you. Hina smiled and greeted quickly. Eric waved his hand, let's eat first, we'll talk later. 10:30 in the evening. Inside the room. At this time, Hina has completely integrated into this big family, and the atmosphere is very harmonious, full of laughter. After all, they are all excellent women and will not be jealous. Eric smiled slightly and said, Hina, let's start your performance. Belle followed up and said, Sister Hina, you haven't seen your husband for many days, let's start your performance first. Then, Hina began to perform and showed her heart. I don't know how long it has been. Eric lit a cigarette and said with a faint smile, Wife, I have something to tell you. What is the matter? Belle leaned on his shoulder, looking very happy. Eric, tomorrow I plan to take a look at the reward task, and I will work hard to complete the task next. Hina thought for a while and asked, Honey, are you here to accumulate military exploits? Eric nodded, and said seriously, my current path has come to an end, and there is no way to move on. If you don't find another way, if you want to be promoted to Admiral, you don't know that you have to wait until the year of the monkey. But if I have accumulated a lot of military exploits, based on my prestige, 5 elders should consider adding an Admiral position. Heard the words, all 3 women were lost in thought. After a while, Bellmeyer frowned and asked, Husband, but you said before that you are too young to meet the conditions for promotion, so is accumulating military exploits really useful? Makino echoed, Yes my husband, is it really worth it? Eric took a drag on his cigarette and said calmly, Get ready to go. Hina nodded and agreed. Hina thinks that what my husband did is correct, rather than doing nothing, it's better to work hard, maybe you will succeed. Belle thought for a while and said with a smile, I don't understand the specific situation, but since my husband said so, then I will definitely support it with all my strength. Me too. Makino hurriedly followed. Eric smiled, then it's settled, and the mission will start tomorrow. Makino was very gentle and reminded, Husband, you can do the task, but you must protect your own safety, we will wait for you at home. Belle, yes, husband, I know you are very strong, but you must protect yourself and don't let us worry, you know. Eric laughed loudly and said, Don't worry, I have already possessed the strength of Admiral. In the whole world, anyone who can kill me has not yet been born. Seeing how confident he is, the eyes of the 3 women were full of brilliance and love. A new day, 10 o'clock in the morning. Inside the office, Eric was looking down at the reward list. Whitebeard Newgate, offering a reward of 5 billion Baileys. Kaido of the Beasts, offering a reward of 4.6 billion Baileys. Lists one by one, kept being ignored by Eric. After all, these world-renowned powerhouses are not so easy to kill. Jack the Drow, offering a reward of 1 billion Baileys, Zone Ancient Mammoth Fruit. It's not in Wano-kuni. Judging from the latest news, this guy leads the team and is fighting pirates in New World, far away from Wano-kuni. Eric's eyes flashed, he slammed the desk heavily, and made up his mind. Then, he stood up and strode outside. Marshal's office. At this time, there are 3 old people here. Sengoku drank tea and said lightly, Garp, you old guy, don't you go to Eric to practice your hand. Garp ate the senbei and laughed loudly. That kid is too young, I don't want to bully the younger with the big, ha ha ha. Staff Officer Crane said calmly, Eric is the nemesis of those with abilities, but there is no good way to deal with Garp, who is strong in pure physical arts. Sudden, PPP. The 3 of them looked over quickly. Garp laughed and said, You kid, we just talked about you, and you overheard it. Sengoku sat up straight and asked, Eric Vice Admiral, come and see me, what's the matter? Eric smiled slightly, and said, Master Marshal, I'm going to take over the task and go to capture the Emperor's disaster Jack. Shock. Immediately, the audience was stunned. What did you say? Sengoku said in disbelief. Garp was very surprised. Boy, do you know who Jack is? That guy is a big pirate with a reward of 1 billion. Eric nodded, and said calmly, in order to promote Admiral, I have no other way. Heard the words. The three fell silent. Garp ate the senbei, squinted his eyes and said, Are you trying to accumulate military exploits? This may not be the way. Sengoku looked serious. Eric Vice Admiral, your idea is very good, but I don't recommend you to do it. No matter how much military exploits you have accumulated, the higher-ups will not consider it. After all, Admiral's age, it's impossible to be that young. Eric smiled. You're right, I know all of this. However, if I do nothing, it is absolutely impossible to advance to Admiral. Give it a go, at least there is still a glimmer of life. Immediately, the three of them became quiet again and began to think seriously. After a while, Garp stood up, patted Eric on the shoulder, and said with a big smile, Very good, as expected of a young man recognized by the old man, ha ha ha. Sengoku smiled and said admiringly, Eric Vice Admiral, although I don't agree with your approach, I have to say that there is indeed a chance of survival, although it is very slim. At this time, Staff Officer Crane's eyes shone with wisdom, and said lightly, Eric Vice Admiral, what you are doing now is exactly the same as Guion. As a woman, it is almost impossible for Guion to become Admiral, but she is still persisting, just to fight for that chance. If you want to become Admiral, no one in this department can help you, everything is decided from the highest level, and no one can interfere. So, whether your method of accumulating military exploits will work or not, only the 5 adults know. Eric nodded, and said with a smile, Chief of Staff, the consistent approach of the higher-ups is to seek progress while maintaining stability, and everything is based on the safe. If I don't do something, then before the age of 40, don't think about going any further. After all, there is no doubt that the higher authorities will not allow young people in their 30s to become admirals. Heard the words. All three looked appreciatively. Garp said with a smile, The rules are not static, as long as you keep working hard and accumulate enough military exploits, I believe those 5 old guys will still think about it. Sengoku glared at him, and said angrily, Garp, show some respect to those 5 people. Know it. Garp pinched his nostrils and replied casually. Eric thought to himself, sure enough, someone with a high degree of art is bold. Even celestial dragons are rubbish. He dares to say such things, let alone other things. In my mind, I can't help recalling a picture. At the World Summit, Staley told Garp that he wanted to be celestial dragons. Garp said straight up, do you want to be that kind of trash? In an instant, Staley was stunned. At this time, Sengoku said in a deep voice, Eric Vice Admiral, since you have this idea, go ahead and implement it. If you really have accumulated enough prestige, then this coach will personally visit Mariajoy and do something within his power. Garp laughed and said, Boy, what the old man said up there still has some effect, and the old man will also give you a few good words for you when the time comes. Staff officer, he said calmly, count me into the old man. Eric smiled slightly, since that's the case, then I'll start the task. Sengoku waved his hand and smiled, go ahead and protect yourself. Eric nodded, and then walked towards the door. After he left, Sengoku said happily, it's really a material. Staff officer, he sighed, and said with a wry smile, it's a pity that our words have no weight, and the decisions above are not something we can shake. Garp didn't care about it, why bother so much, anyway, as much as you can help, let the rest be considered by the superiors. New World, town of Barlow. At this time, on the coast, a fierce battle is breaking out. Jack, Lousy has nothing against you, are you crazy? Noki yelled angrily. He is a man in his 30s, short and fat, with a long scar on his face, and looks very fierce. Jack grinned and said, your bounty is as high as 500 million, if you are a veteran of New World, Lousy's reputation will definitely increase if he kills you. Immediately, the subordinates shouted one after another. Boss Jack must win. Zone Ancient Species, it's so awesome. This is a big sign for the Beast's pirates. Captain Jack, Dao is the most military. Kill these guys, Ho ho ho. Boss Jack, he is a big pirate with a bounty of 1 billion, so awesome. After today, the boss's bounty will definitely increase again, wow wow wow. At this time, Nuo-Chi's eyes glowed coldly, and he said coldly, a reward of 1 billion is offered, when Lousy is really afraid of you. Lousy is a Logia miasma fruit capable person, I don't know how many times stronger than your mammoth fruit. Brothers, don't be afraid, kill me. Heard the words. The subordinates raised their weapons and rushed out one after another. Captain Nuo-Chi is the strongest. Die, if you dare to provoke the Noki pirates, you will die to Lousy. Don't think you are beasts pirates, you will be afraid of you if you go. Kill these guys. I want to kill 5, let Lousy come, quack quack. Die, go to die. Above the void, Eric looked down, ignoring everything. A reward of 500 million is offered, it seems that this guy is going to be planted here today. Eric had never heard of the name Nuo-Chi. Obviously, this person has already withdrawn from the stage before the plot started. Sure enough, it was exactly what Eric thought. Not long after, the battle was over. The loser is Nuo-Chi. I really thought that a Logia fruit-capable person would be able to defeat Lousy. Who do you think Lousy is? Jack's eyes widened with anger, and his tone was fierce. Nuo-Chi fell to the ground, covered in blood, and roared, "Why are you so aggressive?" Jack waved his sickle and said indifferently, "Who do you think I am? Lousy is Jack the Drow." Immediately, the subordinates shouted one after another, adored extremely. "Long live Boss Jack, the most hockey man, Boss Jack. It's amazing, I want to follow you forever, Jack's boat is long. With a mere 500 million bounty, you dare to act presumptuously in front of Boss Jack, you're courting death. Amazing class. After tomorrow, the reputation of Jack's boss will definitely spread throughout the new world, quack quack. Boss Jack, kill him. I searched, and took away all the treasures of these people, ha 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 ha." Stop staring, blink. There was a bloodthirsty light in Jack's eyes, and he said cruelly, "Nuo-Chi, you can die for Lousy." As soon as the words fell, he would wave his sickle and chop down. At this time, in the sky, there was a faint voice. "It's a wonderful battle, I don't know if I can join it." Who? Jack was taken aback, and hurriedly looked for the sound. I saw a young man standing in front of him, smoking a cigarette. Such a young Marine, are you here to die? Jack's eyes were wide open, with bloodshot eyes, and a fierce look on his face. At this time, a young man screamed, "Oh my God," he turned out to be Vice Admiral. Immediately, everyone looked at the epaulets. The 2 shining stars are so dazzling. Jack was so shocked, he couldn't believe it and said, "You are such a young Vice Admiral, who the hell are you? Lousy has never heard of it." The little ones all exclaimed, "Who is this guy, Import Road? Vice Admiral in his 20s, what a joke. It must be a stolen warlord. Mad, wearing a Vice Admiral dress, just trying to bluff people, surrounded by. Boss Jack, kill him. It can't be Vice Admiral, even if you kill Lousy, you won't believe it. A mere person dares to show up here, it's boring. Marine, Lousy likes to kill Marine the most, and I'll dig out his heart to drink later, quack." Eric took a drag on his cigarette, and said with a blank expression, "Jack the Drow, the Beast's Pirates Big Billboard, the ancient species demon fruit power, a reward of 100 million Baileys." Jack showed a cruel smile, and said with a sneer, "Lousy understands, you guy, you are here to arrest me. Okay, very good, Lousy admires your courage. Don't worry, Lousy won't kill you so quickly, and cut you off with one knife, just in time for Lousy's brothers to drink and eat." At this time, Nuo-Chi was full of madness, coughed up blood and said, "It's great, there is Marine to be buried with Lousy, it's worth it, ha ha ha." "Shut up for Lousy." Jack was so angry that he stepped on him. Nuo-Chi spat out a mouthful of blood, his face was extremely pale, and his breath was very weak. Jack said coldly, "Once this Marine is resolved, Lousy will deal with you again." After finishing speaking, he kicked Nuo-Chi aside. "Ah!" Nuo-Chi screamed and passed out directly. "This scene is very cruel. Oh, you young man is quite courageous, but your expression hasn't changed at all." There was a bloodthirsty light in Jack's eyes, and he said excitedly, "Very well, it seems that you are still a Marine seedling, and Lousy likes to pull out fresh shoots the most." Swish. He took out the 2 packs of scimitars, with a sharp cold light shining. Lousy has slaughtered so many Marines, but he has never killed Vice Admiral. Today he finally has a chance, ha ha ha. Excited. At this moment, Jack's face was full of madness, and he looked like a ghost. What nonsense, come here. Dark water. Eric activated his dark left hand and pushed forward, facing Jack in front of him. In an instant, an invisible traction broke out and swept forward. Boom. What? Jack was taken aback, with a look of horror on his face. He felt a strong attraction, which was constantly pulling himself. Without waiting for him to make a move, he directly moved forward. Who do you think, Lousy? Jack reacted quickly, raised 2 scimitars high, and slashed fiercely in the void. Immediately, 2 sharp saber oars broke through the space and slashed towards Allison. Sigh. Eric disappeared instantly. Rumble. The saber chi slashed on the ground, causing the ground to crack, and 2 extremely deep marks appeared. If it attacks a person, it can tear the person into pieces in an instant. What? Seeing the person in front of him disappear, Jack was taken aback. But before he could react, there was a movement from behind. Eric covered armament hockey with his right foot and swept out. In a hurry, Jack quickly armed his back. Bang! A huge force directly kicked him out. Abe! Jack let out a miserable scream, spat out a mouthful of blood in the air, and hit the ground heavily. Suddenly, dust rose up, covering his figure. This scene directly stunned the audience. How can it be? Just kidding. Boss Jack, he was kicked away. Fake. Lousy must be dreaming. Oh my god, Captain Jack vomited blood, what's going on? Careless. Boss Jack must be careless. Marine, actually engaged in a sneak attack, Momousagi. Island of Ghosts. Kaido sat on the throne, drank heavily, and said with a smile, not bad, today's wine is really delicious, wow. Jin came over in a hurry, and said with a serious face, something happened, this idiot Jack is in trouble. Kaido's eyes were fierce, and he looked like a ghost. What are you talking about? Something happened to Jack. Jin spread out his palm, and there was a small card from white on it, the corners of which were burning. Judging from the signs of the life card, the situation of this idiot is not optimistic. Immediately, the people around started discussing one after another. With a cigar in his mouth, Quinn said angrily, who dares to attack us beasts pirates, die. Holding the pipe, Black Maria said in amazement, Jack's strength is beyond the reach of ordinary people. Could it be that he met Admiral? Impossible. Yun Shi retorted, how could Admiral appear in New World? Absolutely impossible. Kaido slammed the bottle on the ground. With a bang, the bottle shattered and the wine spilled all over the floor. Momousagi, if you dare to attack Lousy's people, Lousy wants to see who is so brave. After finishing speaking, Yinbu walked outside. Quinn took a puff of cigarette, and said with emotion, after going out, the world will be turned upside down again. Jin had no expression on his face, and said coldly, Jack, you idiot, really deserve to die. Town of Barlow. At this time, the dust finally settled. Jack stood up and said with surprise on his face, you fool, what happened just now? Why was I dragged by you? Also, how did you disappear just now? How could your speed be so fast? Mom, what's going on? Excuse me, I have no obligation to answer you. Eric said with a blank expression on his face. Really think of himself as a character. Jack said murderously. Lousy is Jack the Drow, what are you guys? Next, Lousy wants you to die. The voice fell. Bang. Directly use the ability to produce fruit, and become a huge mammoth, with 2 extremely sharp ivory, shining coldly. This time, I don't believe Lousy will be dragged by you. Jack is full of confidence, relying on his own weight, it is absolutely impossible to be moved. See this scene. The little ones were so excited that they shouted one after another. It has appeared, Mr. Sleepy has used the ancient devil fruit. Okay, now this marine is dead. Boss Jack, trample this guy to death, ha ha ha. After turning into a mammoth, Captain Jack's defense was extremely terrifying. Go to hell, marine lackey, quack quack. Eric muttered secretly. Such a big body, isn't this a living target? Dark water. The dark left hand activated again, facing Jack. Don't think about success. Jack roared loudly, and his limbs and legs stepped heavily on the ground, as steady as a rock. However, In the face of dark fruit's traction, no matter how heavy the body is, it will not help. Why is this happening? Jack was startled and angry. Its huge body was moving forward little by little, and it was not under its control at all. See this scene. The little ones were astonished to the extreme. How can it be? What the hell kind of ability is this? Why is Boss Jack still attracted and lost? Boss Jack's current weight can be compared to a hill. It's terrible. Who is this Marine Vice Admiral? When did such a powerful Vice Admiral appear in Marine? No wonder he was promoted to Vice Admiral in his 20s, this guy's strength is really too strong. What should I do? Boss Jack doesn't seem to be his opponent. Even if I was pulled over by you, what can you do to me? Unable to resist, Jack let go completely. Boom boom boom. Stepping on the ground with all four limbs, making a heavy sound, he rushed towards Eric quickly. The sharp ivory, shining with a sharp cold light, is bound to stab the heart of the person in front of him. Dark Cave Road. Eric stared. The right hand turned into a hand of darkness, pressing heavily to the ground. Immediately, with him as the center, endless darkness spread in all directions. The first to bear the brunt is Jack in front. What the hell is this? Jack was taken aback. He found that his body was sinking, and there was no way to move on. At the same time, on the other side, the little ones are also in a state of panic. Ah, what the hell is this? Run, this darkness will devour you. Male Gobi, this fool's ability is too weird, yes. The power of darkness, what is this devil fruit? It must be Logia, otherwise it is absolutely impossible to be so powerful. Get out of here quickly, or it will be over. Too strong, this Vice Admiral is really terrible. At this time, Jack had no choice but to lose his ability and return to his adult form. I didn't expect Lousy's ability to be cracked by you directly, Mauler Gobi. Jack was so angry that he was about to jump up. However, he was horrified to find that it was impossible. What exactly is going on? Jack was taken aback. He found that his feet were pulled by attraction force, and he couldn't jump up at all. Without waiting for him to react. Dark Water. Eric used this ability again. Boom. Jack's body, out of control, flew forward. It's annoying, what the hell? Jack raised the scimitar, and slashed down hard towards the front. Sigh. Eric disappeared again and came to his head in an instant. The armed right foot stepped down heavily. What? This time, Jack has pulled himself together, but still can't find Eric's trace. Before he had time to think about it, he quickly armed his head. Bang. Ah. Jack let out a miserable scream, and his body fell heavily into the darkness. See this scene. The little guys on the side all looked at each other. What should I do? Boss Jack is not his opponent at all. It's just being suppressed and beaten. How can you play like this? I want to say, are we going to wait here to die? Yeah, once Boss Jack is cleaned up, it's our turn. Run, there is no need to be buried with him. That's right. It's a big deal not to be pirates. As long as we remain anonymous, the beast's pirates can't find us. Let's go, let's run. Withdraw, run. Jack stood up slowly, his face covered in blood, and he shook his head, trying to wake himself up. Male Gobi, the powerful armament hockey, definitely the most advanced. If it wasn't for Lousy's strong body, he would have been killed by this guy long ago. No, I have to think of a way, otherwise I will really explain it here. Zhao Zhao's Jack kept thinking about how to resolve this crisis. Sudden, he was surprised to find that all his men had run away. Furious, after Lousy gets away, he will kill you one by one. Jack's eyes were full of murderous intent, and he really wanted to catch up and kill those people. However, this can only be thought about. You idiot, why did you attack me? Lousy as the three disasters of the beast's pirates, aren't you afraid of Kaido's revenge? Jack knew that he was no match, so he began to intimidate him. However, Eric didn't respond to him at all. The villain dies of talking too much. If you can fight, you will never beat. Dark Water. Eric used this ability again. Mada, why is it still this, Sao Nima? Jack's face was full of fear, he was really afraid of this ability. However, no matter how scared Jack is, nothing can be changed. His body, uncontrollable again, flew towards Eric. You are a bully when you were Lousy, Lousy killed you. Jack covered his whole body with armament hockey, and made a good defense early. scimitar wielding with both hands. Swish swish swish. A lot of sword energy was chopped out in a row, crisscrossing, covering the entire space, and slashed towards Eric. However, this is obviously futile. Sigh. Eric directly broke through the space and disappeared in place. Male Gobi, here we go again, grandmas. Jack was very angry, but helpless. He glanced around coldly and pulled himself together. Obviously, he couldn't predict Eric's trajectory at all. The space fluctuated, and Eric appeared right in front of him. The right hand was completely black, and it was smashed out fiercely. Lousy killed you. Jack's eyes were full of bloodthirsty light. He raised the scimitar, covered it with armed color, and slashed down heavily. Finally, black fist and black knife collided. There was a bang. Sparks flew, the air vibrated, and a strong wind suddenly blew around. Immediately afterwards, Jack's body was thrown backwards by a terrifying force. How could this fool be so powerful? Jack was so angry that he yelled. As an ancient mammoth fruit, he has a very strong strength value, but he can't even interview this young man. This really shocked him to the extreme. Whoosh. Eric suddenly disappeared. Suddenly, Jack's face was full of tension, and he looked around, full of vigilance. The air fluctuated, and Eric came to the top of his head in an instant. It's so annoying, Sao Nima. Jack was so depressed that he slashed upwards with the machete. Bang. Jack was subjected to great force, and his body fell down. No, if this continues, I will die here. Flee, this fool is too strong, I can't beat him. Jack was terrified, and after landing, he was about to flee into the distance. However, the ground was shrouded in darkness, and he couldn't jump at all, so he could only run forward with all his strength. Those with abilities are weak chickens, come here obediently. Eric sneered. Dark water. The dark left hand is facing the fleeing Jack. In an instant, Jack received a huge force and was pulled over again. What the hell is going on? Why is this happening? Mad. Jack was very angry and very helpless. He was really panicked now. Lousy hacked you to death, son of a fool. Jack kept waving his two knives, slashing out several sword auras. However, everything is a cloud. Eric disappeared in place, and when he reappeared, he was already behind him. Next, the picture keeps repeating. Jack was sent flying out, trying to escape, but was pulled over again. Time passed slowly. There were more and more wounds on Jack's body, and his whole body had turned into a blood man. Moreover, his strength was constantly declining, and his eyes dimmed accordingly. What should I do? If this continues, Lousy will die. Jack was terrified and confused to the extreme. First, for the first time in his life, he felt the fear of death. He has always been not afraid of the sky and the earth, but only this time, he is really afraid. Boss Kaido, he must be on his way, Nazi must persevere. But, he has no such confidence at all. The young man in front of him was really a monster. He felt that he would not last until the end. New world, on the sky. Kaido turned into the form of Azure Dragon and was on his way. Jack, you idiot, hold on to Lousy. Seeing AJCI starting to burn the life card in his hand, Kaido was very angry, but there was nothing he could do. It's really too far away from where Jack is. Even if he flies with all his strength, he can't catch up. Even so, he still tried his best to fly forward at the fastest speed. Don't let Lousy know who it is, or Lousy will definitely kill him. Town of Barlow. At this point, the battle was drawing to a close. Jack's face was covered with blood. He was leaning on the ground with a knife, trembling all over. Yiping was about to fall down. What's your name? Answer Lousy. Jack growled, distraught. This is the last cry. Sorry, I have no obligation to answer you. Eric said something lightly. Dark water, dark fruit, activate for the last time. Boom. Jack showed despair, and his body flew forward again. When he reacted, it was found that Eric had already held it in his hand, and was caught tightly. You can't be Vice Admiral, without a Vice Admiral as strong as you. Who are you? Who are you? Jack yelled, his face full of resignation. Eric didn't beep. The Japanese punch hit his head. Ah! Jack let out an incomparably shrill scream, and he flew backwards, fell heavily to the ground, and passed out completely. Fight, end here. Nuo-chi had already woken up, and said with horror on his face, that guy Jack is right, you are definitely not Vice Admiral, there is no such strong Vice Admiral. What nonsense, come here. Eric launched Dark Fruit, directly pulling him over. What are you doing, what do you want to do? Seeing being caught, Nuochi said in horror. Eric didn't say a word, just punched him. Og. After a scream, Nuochi flew out and passed out. Eric looked around, but there was no one. Jack's men had long since escaped to nowhere. Eric lifted Jack and Nuochi up, broke through the space, and disappeared in place in an instant. After 1 hour, town of Barlow, Kaido, here it is after all. Looking at the potholes all over the ground, we can see how fierce the battle here is. Maid, Jack, that idiot, was still captured, this idiot. Kaido's eyes were fierce, his body exuded a destructive aura, and conquerors swept the audience. Die, let Lousy die. Kaido gripped the mace tightly, wrapped it around the conqueror's haki, and kept waving it. Boom boom boom, the whole small town was constantly roaring. Now, all the residents in the small town suffered. All of them were terrified and screamed. What is he trying to do? Why do you want to do this? Let us go. Oh my god, it turned out to be Kaido of the Beasts, this is a big pirate. It's over, run quickly, hide quickly. Male Gobi, why did you attack the town, this pirate? Kaido, it's terrible, run away. It's over, the town is completely over now. Marine, what about that Marine just now, why did he leave, please help us. Woo woo woo, hearing the people begging for mercy, Kaido was excited and laughed. Die, you all go to die, oh. Thunder 8 trigrams. Kaido wields a mace and keeps sending out big moves. Boom, the buildings in the town continued to collapse, and the people screamed, and were blasted out one by one. The scene is really bloody and cruel. This is the pirate. Not for a while, whole towns were destroyed. Still puzzled, Kaido turned into Azure Dragon and flew to the next town. Obviously, he will continue to kill more people. Marineford, office building, 2nd floor. The space fluctuated, and Eric's figure appeared. Then, he carried the two of them and walked forward. Kizaru just came out of the office, and when he saw the two people clearly, he screamed. Hey, I read that right, isn't that guy Jack the Drow from Beast's Pirates? The sound is a bit loud. Immediately, the generals in the nearby office came out one after another. Akainu was shocked and said in disbelief, you brought Jack the Drow back. Doberman was extremely surprised, this is the guy who offered a reward of 1 billion Baileys. Impossible, Eric's strength, how could it be so powerful? Ghost Spider said with a gloomy face. Aokiji exclaimed, it's too bold to deal with Jack the Drow alone. The flying squirrel frowned and said in admiration, Eric Vice Admiral's strength is much stronger than mine, and it is definitely at the Admiral level. With a cigar in his mouth, Huo Shaoshan said with a gentle smile, it is indeed much stronger than us. Even without Admiral's strength, it is infinitely close. Eric ignored them and walked forward. Marshal's office. At this time, there was still only one old man here. Everyone is very laid back, drinking tea and chatting. Garp ate the senbei and said with a smile, Xiaohei, Gion should be promoted to Vice Admiral next year. Staff officer He took a sip of tea and said calmly, her qualifications have already met the requirements, and her strength is also sufficient, so she will be promoted next year. This year's quota is for Eric, and next year it's her turn. Sengoku said lightly. At this time, knock knock knock, hearing the knock on the door, the three hurriedly looked over. Suddenly, everyone stood up in shock. Garp's eyes widened, and he said in disbelief, Eric, you came back so soon, and what the hell is it? Sengoku was shocked and murmured, impossible, how could it be so fast? Staff officer He was stunned, that guy is obviously Jack the Drow, as for the other one, Nuochi, who offered a reward of 500 million, actually won 2 people, this. Eric stepped in. With a casual throw, the two of them were thrown to the floor. Master Marshal, captured Jack the Drow, that lunatic Kaido, it is very likely that he will find it here. Eric smiled slightly, and said lightly, I guess, he is already on his way now. To this, Sengoku didn't take it seriously at all, and said in a deep voice, this guy Kaido is indeed a lunatic, but naval headquarters is not a place where he can be unrestrained. Garp laughed, very happy, boy, you have taken down Jack the Drow, you have completely offended Kaido, so be careful when you go out in the future. Eric said calmly. Kaido can transform into Azure Dragon very fast, but he is still not enough to look at the fruit of space. Heard the words. Staff Officer Crane nodded, with a wise light in his eyes, and said slowly, Eric Vice Admiral, Kaido really can't deal with you, but your family must be more careful. Do not leave the confines of this department, or you may be retaliated by the Beast's pirates. As long as you stay near the headquarters, the safety of your family members can still be guaranteed. To this, Eric thought it was right, and said solemnly, Chief of Staff, I considered this before deciding to arrest Jack. My family members are all here in the headquarters, and Kaido has no chance to do anything. After a pause, he took out 2 fruits from his bosom, and said with a smile, Next, it's time to deprive them of the devil fruit. Garp immediately became interested, and laughed loudly, You guys can deprive devil fruit, but I've never seen it before, this time I finally got the chance, ha ha ha. Sengoku was full of interest, and quickly said, I am also very curious, how did you deprive devil fruit? It is definitely a feast for the eyes to see it with your own eyes. Staff Officer Crane's eyes flashed, and he asked, one is a banana and the other is a pineapple. Is there any explanation for this, Eric Vice Admiral? Eric smiled slightly and explained, Zone corresponds to bananas. Logia corresponds to pineapples. Well, Staff Officer Crane glanced at Nuauchi on the ground, and said in a calm tone, This guy is a Logia miasma fruit-capable person, and the corresponding fruit is a pineapple, and Jack the Drow is a banana. Garp urged, Eric, don't worry about it, start now, the old man can't wait any longer. Eric nodded, stepped in front of the 2 of them, and squatted down slowly. The 3 stood aside with serious faces, observing carefully. Sudden, Eric's left hand, which turned into a hand of darkness, was placed on Nuochi's body. In an instant, darkness enveloped Nuochi completely. Roar. In the darkness, the roar of the devil came, as if it wanted to come out straight from the inside. See this scene. The 3 of Sengoku were all stunned. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.